generate additional GDA for the city region of around £50 million, and more importantly, help bridge digitally by providing a platform for more efficient delivery of public services. In relation to very helpful question from Councillor Rob Gregson regarding the apprentice, he will recall, the members will recall, this was a saying from last year that the Prime Minister looked at different ways to deliver this. I'm glad to say that we have had strong interest in the new scheme. We've secured 55 apprentices, apprentice places for unemployed and those not in employment and education and training. Young people in 48 businesses in Wirral, including these numbers are 4 places specifically set aside for care leavers. Recruitment of young people is taking place throughout this month with vacancies advertised via the National Apprenticeship Scheme. Also Job Centre and also the websites. 16 have already started and we expect them all to be in place in early November. The majority of places, Mr Mayor, are with small businesses and there have been high interest from the engineering sector. With new vacancies secured in the marine sector and supply chain, which ties in really well with our regional growth fund ambitions and focuses, Mr Mayor, on economic growth in this sector. When we're fully recruited, we will be given a full breakdown of age, qualification, framework and business sector, etc. So thank you very much for that. Very helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Hackett. Councillor Ann McLachlan, an opening clause. Is that noted? Thank you. We now move on to portfolio for environment and sustainability. Are there any questions for Councillor Pat? Please ask your question first.
So thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I just ask a question, please, to Councillor Brian Kenny? Brian, I'm really pleased to know that the Council are actually drafting a litter reduction strategy, and clearly part of that strategy, you have a key focus on dog fouling within that. But surely wouldn't you not agree with me that the best way to discourage dog fouling is to increase and not act the number of dog wardens that we have? And therefore, by increasing them, you may be able to improve the number of prosecutions for owners who actually flout the law in that offence. Because I have to say, Brian, unfortunately, under your cabinet leadership on this item, the number of prosecutions have been nothing short of appalling.
Councillor Dowson.
I'd just like to ask a question. One was a very interesting presentation by the leader of Seven Oaks Council on Saturday. A discussion was had with himself where he congratulated Wirral Council on the successful implementation of our garden waste scheme and also was pleased and amazed to see how low the cost of this service is when in his authority, Conservative authority, the cost is £42 a year. And also, can I congratulate the Cabinet Member on the percentage...
May I have a question, please?
Sorry, and congratulate the Cabinet Member on the percentage increase of garden waste composition and how this might continue to be implemented in the future.
No further question.
That was how it continued.
Thank you. Councillor Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, it's on the issue of garden waste. I wonder if the Cabinet Member has an idea or an estimate how many brown bins are likely to be returned, what is likely to be the fate of the brown bins in terms of their recycling or reuse, and what is it going to do with the brown bin mountain?
Councillor Williams.
Given the Council's very difficult financial position, can you afford to implement the Wirral coastal strategy?
Councillor Tony.
This question relates to the coastal strategy. I welcome the proposal for the Council to explore funding options in relation to the coastal strategy. Given the serious level of flooding that has been within the borough recently to people's homes and land, can the Cabinet Member advise of any work that has been done in relation to this issue with United Utilities and the environmental officers?
Councillor Kenny,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the first question from Cllr Rennie, I must admit, I do smile when this Labour administration has been forced to implement cuts of over £109 million over 3 years, a third of our budget, in a situation where it didn't appear to be any protest to the national government for forcing Wirral and areas like Wirral into that position. Because the many decisions that we had to make as part of last year's budget were very difficult decisions that we did have to implement, and now we're getting complaints as a result of those reductions. But can I say that we are very concerned about the whole question of dog fouling, litter picking, etc., and that's one of the reasons why we're shortly going to be allocating £10,000 to each of the new 4 constituency committees to spend on the basis that we want them within the constituencies to use that money to basically clean up the area, decide for themselves what their priorities are, etc., etc. So money will be allocated for that. Also, at the end of last week, Mr. Mayor, I did have a meeting with Mike Collins, one of the senior dog wardens, about the whole question of dog fouling. I understand that a couple of staff have recently left and have not yet been replaced. That is in the process of being dealt with at the moment. So hopefully before too long, the number of prosecutions will come up. But when we're talking about prosecutions, I've said this before and I'll say it again now. People can't be prosecuted for allowing their dog to foul unless somebody is willing to come forward with evidence. So if anybody in this chamber, or anybody in the Wirral, has ever got any evidence of anybody allowing their dog to foul without cleaning it up, please pass the evidence on, and I can assure you that evidence will be used. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Councillor Doughty's question, yeah, I mean, you'll see from the report that we've already had over 35,000 people in the Wirral sign up for the new garden waste scheme. The original target was 30,000, so we're well above the target. And again, as you can see in the report, I've been asked to go and speak at a conference, unless it's called in, but I've been asked to speak at a conference outside the Wirral on this whole area with Cllr, because I understand that already many councils up and down the country have already, as Councillor Doughty has said, have already introduced charges for garden waste. Most of them seem to be well above the charge that we introduced in the Wirral. And as we speak, many other councils are now considering introducing charges for garden waste. And that's why they're very interested in learning from our experience here in the Wirral. And again, Councillor Doughty mentioned home composting. I think again, the figures in the report are very encouraging, because one of the aspects of introducing the garden waste scheme was that we wanted to encourage more and more residents within the Wirral to go down the road of home composting. And I'm pleased to say that many of them have already done that. Again, Councillor Gilchrist refers to the question of garden waste. Now, we will very shortly be going out to tender to get bids in for the taking away of brown bins for those people who don't want them. And the brown bins will be taken away round about the end of November. At the moment, there's no specific figures as to how many we're going to be taking in, and it's going to be part of the tendering process as to what the people who tender will intend to do with the brown bins. But I am happy to give a written answer on that one, Mr. Mayor, when we have more details. Councillor Jeanette Williams asked about the Wirral coastal scheme and said basically, I think, can we afford it? Well, I think my answer to that is, well, we can't afford not to. We've just spent over 2 years looking at the whole Wirral coastal strategy scheme to decide what we're going to do for literally the next 100 years. I can't guarantee I'm going to be here at the end of that 100 years. I probably won't. But it is such an important issue for the Wirral. Obviously, with us being a peninsula, it's surrounded by water on 3 sides, so we can't afford to ignore this issue. And that's why we've instructed Kevin Adderley to go away and identify funding from places like the Environment Agency, other areas of funding, where the work can be done over the next 20 years to make sure all the coastal areas are protected. So we've got to find the money for that one. It is so important. And on the last question, Mr. Mayor, about the question of flooding. Well, I understand one of the main areas of flooding in the Wirral over the last few years has been in the area of Reedsville Road and Reeds Lane in Leeson. And I understand that as a direct result of a public meeting called by Councillor Abbey and Councillor Leach, followed by meetings with United Utilities, we've now, I think, got good news on that one, because United Utilities have recently announced that they're putting aside £5 million to resolve this problem. going to introduce a new pumping station, and I think that will be very much welcomed by the residents who live in that area, and also people who have cause to use the local station, Riso station. So there is some good news on that one, Mr. Mayor.
Building on floodplains.
Thank you. Councillor invited to know that report. Agree? Thank you. Moving on now to the portfolio of governance and improvement questions for Councillor Ann McLachlan. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question really regarding the freedom of information item on your report. It's rather unfortunate really that the administration would appear to try to deflect the council's well-documented inability to deal with a number of freedom of information requests that we actually seek from members of the public by in some way trying to imply that it's members of the public's own fault that just ask far too many questions really. So would the cabinet member agree with me that if in fact local people were able to trust the council and if in fact the council was more honest, more open, more trustworthy and transparent, then members of the public would not need quite clearly to avail themselves of the mechanism of going down the route of freedom of information requests. And also I hope that she would also agree with me that some of the information that particularly members have to ask for should be freely available to members of the council, to the elected members, in order for them to carry out their elected member duties.
Thank you, Councillor Lesley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the cabinet member will be aware that on the 16th of July, the Chief Executive said to the councillors, it comes to my attention that a freedom of information request was made by elected members for information related to council by the report of privacy. Members, of course, have a right to make their voice, but I felt it was worth reminding you that the inquiry can make happen regarding how the council conducts its business. I'm always more than happy to provide an expedient response from Thursday, providing any information is requested. And yet, council adopted on the 22nd of August, when I made a request for Chief Executive information, I was told that request was unreasonable, and therefore had to submit a freedom of information request, to which I agreed at the outset in the prescribed time. That's a cabinet member can inform their officers to be more open and transparent, and then maybe there won't be a next freedom of information request.
Councillor Lesley.
My question for the cabinet member and to the public would be regarding section 1 of your report on the improvement plan, is it too soon for the improvement board to be considered legal?
Regarding section 3 of your report on information governance, can you advise if elected members will be affected by this, please?
Councillor Lewis.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor McLachlan, under item 2 you took up performance management and make reference to member development and training. On previous questions, previous council meeting, I asked you if members have been appointed as assistant cabinet members, and you replied in the minutes of the last meeting, you said that the Labour group had appointed assistant cabinet portfolio holders. They were not within the constitution, but the appointments had been made by the Labour group to assist their members in getting Wirral and training. You say that they're not within the constitution, but on page 239 of the constitution, item F, it states that assistant portfolio members are within the constitution. Can I therefore ask you again to publish the names either in written form after the meeting or now of those assistant cabinet members, please?
Would you like to respond to those questions?
Mr. Mayor, can I first of all deal with the question of the FOIs? Yes, I agree with you, Lesley, that if we are doing what we say we're doing, which is being more open and transparent, we've got more information on our website, we shouldn't have the need for so many FOIs. And quite clearly, the number of FOIs that we are receiving has dramatically fallen. And I'll just give you some statistics on that. The Council, as for the months of July and August, met all the targets set by the Information Commissioner, responding to at least 85% of requests, as I've said in my report. In July, there were 85.5 responded to within the statutory timescale. However, the Information Commissioner did agree with us in relation to two particular FOIs, that they should be taken into account in the response rate of 87%. In August, we had an 87.9 response rate within the statutory timescale. And for September, the precise rates won't be known until the end of October. But just to give you an example of the kinds of numbers of FOIs that we are receiving within recent months, in July we received 131 FOIs, of which 114 were responded to within the time frame. In August, 107, of which 94 were responded to, and in September, 96, of which to date we've responded to 66 within the 20 working days. I agree entirely with you that what we want to do is to ensure that we reduce FOIs by being open and transparent in our, in all of the information that we put out. I don't know the particular circumstances, Chris, of the request that we made for information. Clearly, if we didn't get a response and we had to make an FOI, I would like to find out the reasons for that, and I will respond to you about that particular issue, because clearly I think the elected members are asking for information. If we're saying that information within the authority is freely available to all elected members, then clearly I've got to concern that was something that should be in the public domain, and it wasn't. In response to the question around the improvement board, and the improvement board, is it too early for the improvement board to be thinking about leaving us? Well, as I've said in section 1 of my report, the improvement board is undertaking a review now, which is going to be an assessment of where Wirral is in comparison with where we were 18 months ago. On the basis of that, the improvement board members will decide how they want to work in the future. And until that discussion takes place, Mr. Mayor, we cannot assume that the improvement board are set in any way to leave us at this moment. But I would want to say that we really value their support, and this is a measure of how far we feel that we've come along through the journey, that they are in a position now to be undertaking that review. With regard to section 3 of my report on information governance, yes, in response to your question, Julie, yes, members will, the review of the information governance will obviously clearly affect members, because members have access to confidential personal information, particularly in relation to personal details relating to constituents. And it's important that members also understand their obligations on how they can ensure information is carefully managed and protected. And the board that is being set up will be considering how members can best be supported through that process with regard to putting in place training and other measures which are considered appropriate.
Could I ask the members in the public comment?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, finally on the point that Councillor Lewis has raised about assistant cabinet members, I will give a written response and we will publish the names of the assistant cabinet members. Thank you.
Councillors are invited to have that. Great. Move on to portfolio for health and wellbeing. Councillor Chris. Sorry, any questions for Councillor Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a long-time supporter of our parks and gardens and our recreation, and particularly our health requirements in the borough, can the Cabinet member explain how she can square her portfolio responsibilities of securing effective health improvements and ensuring the public are protected from harm to their health with the Chief Executive's budget proposal option to charge those people visiting and parking in the borough's country parks? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Although this has not been directly alluded to in your report, you will be aware that Dr. Diane Asher, former Chief Executive of the Wirral Autistic Society, wrote a highly critical letter stating that she thought Wirral was making very poor progress in respect of the implementation of the Autism Act and the National Guidance 2010. Can you tell the members what progress you are making to rectify this position in response to this criticism? Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to commend the part of the report 25, the good work that Lively One-Stop Shops carry out. Can the Cabinet member confirm that this Labour administration will not look at Lively closures across the borough as did the previous failed policy of the previous Labour administration?
Councillor Meaden, would you like to respond to those questions?
Councillor Alston, yes, I do agree with you, but unfortunately, because of the cuts, we might have to look at that, and it is part of the consultation at the moment. And that's my answer to that question. Second question was, Shelley, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for this evening, but I will do a written response to you on that one, as it was not part of my report this evening. And thirdly, we have got no intention of closing any of our libraries in the next year.
Thank you for that. The councillors notes of the report. Agreed? Thank you. The next one is in relation to highways and transportation. Any questions for Councillor Ali Smith? You are? You are the first one.
You must be doing a good job in highways and transportation if nobody else got questions except me. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I've made inquiries about the LSTF programme, and I went in and I spent 2 hours with the staff getting information on travel solutions, business travel support, and sustainable transport infrastructure improvements. And can I commend the work that the staff are doing there, led by Mark Smith and Mike Pease, and overseen by Councillor Harry Smith, of course. And it's fantastic, and I would commend the other members here to go in to see what's being done. The great work in the highways. No, that wasn't a question, that was a statement. My question, Mr. Mayor, appertains to section 4 of Highways report. The Cabinet Member for Highways and Transportation report advises that the Council is looking to progress a business case for the development of the dock bridges. Can the Cabinet Member advise why this project is so important, and why can't we just continue to maintain the bridges as they are? Thanks, sir.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it would be a shame really not to me to ask Councillor Harris a question. So Harry, my question would be in paragraph 1 of your report, where you're talking about existing contracts, and you can give rise to my question is where you just mentioned winter gritting. Would you not agree with me that if the Cabinet were to go forward with perhaps one of the suggestions in the Chief Executive's report, which is now out for consultation, in that winter gritting should perhaps possibly be considered for a decrease, whether that be a decrease in the gritting routes or whether that be a decrease in the number of the grit bins, which have obviously in many cases been provided by the former area forums. That would not only cause great danger to pedestrians, but would also probably cause great danger to vehicle users, and could well see an increase in road traffic collisions and injuries and possible deaths.
Well, as someone said that no one was asking questions, Harry. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On highways maintenance, Mr. Mayor, Harry, you mentioned, or it was announced at the conference, second annual conference of the council on Saturday, that apparently there's a report being written about delegating highways funding to the constituency committees. Given that apparently we're going to be open, transparent and consultative, at what stage after this report had been written was anyone thinking of speaking to constituency committees about it? And which was the most appropriate elements to be delegated
the gist of the last question. Could you repeat it?
Mind repeating that?
I'd be delighted to, Harry. You remember at the, I'm sure you're awake, the second annual council conference that was held on Saturday, where it was made clear, I think by the Chief Executive, that a report was being written to